when you see radicals in a problem, you want to isolate the square root or radical symbol. So you want to isolate the radical. So what we're going to do is take the negative x and send it over to that side. So we have 4x plus 1 is equal to, when it goes over, it's positive x, so I'm going to just write it x minus 1. So it's not going to the end of the equation, I'm just going to slide it to the other side so the negative 1 stays at the end. How do you get rid of a square root? It's an undoing exponent or square both sides. When you square a square root, whatever's underneath it will be left behind. And I bet if I said right now, square that side, half of you would get it wrong. Okay? So we're going to see how many of you get it right. So you're going to take x minus 1 and square it right now. It's very easy for our eyes. It happens to you guys on multiple choice questions. You're going super fast. A lot of people will take the x and square it and the negative 1 and square it, and they'll write down x squared plus 1. But the thing to help you avoid the error, is off to the side. It might help you to write it out so that you can FOIL or box method or distribute. X times x is x squared. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. But what most people forget is what I call the oi, the outside part, and the inside part. What? Oi. O-I. Oi. So negative x and negative x combined, they're like terms. What do you have now? Negative 2x. So be extra careful when you're doing that. From here, you're going to finish it again. It's a quadratic, so bring everything over to one side so that you're set equal to 0, and then see what you get. So I'm going to pause it. You're going to work on it. So here's the answer. I always tend to move my stuff toward the x squared when it's positive, so I'm going to send my stuff to the right, even though it looks a little bit different with the 0 on the left. If you put the 0 on the right, just make sure you have, the only thing that's left is a positive x squared and a negative 6x. Because there's no constant for this quadratic, we don't worry about factoring like traditionally, or there's an x in that term and an x in that term, so when you factor it out, you have x minus 6 behind, and x times x minus 6, set those equal to 0, right? So what do you get for solutions? 0 and 6 should be your two solutions. Okay? Now, with 0 and 6, you would come off to the side and you would check your work. When you plug 0 back into the equation, 4 times 0 is 0. What's the square root of 1? Minus 0 is equal to negative 1. Is that going to be true? 1 minus 0 is equal to negative 1? No. So that's why I'm saying no, it does not work. When you plug in 6, what's 4 times 6? Plus 1? Square root of 25? Minus 6, is that equal to negative 1? Yes. So again, here's your answer, 0 and 6. But let's make sure you have the dotted line x through your 0. Only the 6 is working. The 0 is, again, an extraneous solution. Oh, look, lucky us. This one has 2 radicals in it. So when there are 2 of them, you will isolate one of them to start. So let's just take the negative one and send it to the other side. So we're going to have 2x minus 5 is equal to 1 plus square root of x minus 3. Now that I have one of the radicals isolated, I will square both sides. What's underneath it is what I get here. Now this one, again, be careful, and it probably is to our advantage to write it out as 1 x minus 3, 1 plus the square root of x minus 3, just so we can kind of see what's happening. So let's take the first ones. 1 times 1 is what? 1. What happens when I take this radical x minus 3 times the radical x minus 3, so square root of x minus 3 times square root of x minus 3 is x minus 3. You take identical radicals, multiply them, whatever's underneath is what you get. It's this that gets to be a little bit different for people, but this is square root of x minus 3, 1 times that, and 1 times this one is also the square root of x minus 3. So how many square root of x minus 3's do I have when I squish them together? 2 of them. So this is 2 square root of x minus 3. So by doing the square both sides, I got rid of 1 radical. So when you look at it, everything in red here, we just have 1 radical left, right? So what do we have to do? Isolate it. So we're going to send the 1 to this side. So we're going to subtract 1 on both sides. I'm going to subtract an x on both sides. And I'm going to add 3 on both sides. So I'm going to do a bunch of moving all at once. What's 2x minus x?
X.
What's negative 5 minus 1 plus 3? 1 minus 1 is gone. X minus x is gone. Negative 3 plus 3 is gone. So the only thing left over there is 2 times x minus 3 under the square root. At this point, I would say, I know my square root, the radical is not by itself. Will it help us to divide by 2? Is it going to make the left-hand side super nice? No. So let's just leave the 2 there, and we'll deal with it in a second. So what do? Square both sides. I'm going to give you about a 10-second head start. What happens when you square this left-hand side? What's what? Sure, but what do you get?
2x minus x squared.
Minus 6x. There you go. Everybody's going to get the x squared and the 9. But a lot of times we forget about the negative 3x in the middle, negative 3x on the outside. So negative 6x for the middle term. And then here, I'm going to write it out. 2 square root of x minus 3 times 2 square root of x minus 3. This is not foiling. Notice there's no positive or negative. We're not adding or subtracting between anything. It is just 4 numbers next to each other. Does it matter what order I multiply in? No. So, to make our life easy, we're going to take the 2 times 2, and what do you get? What's the square root of x minus 3 times the square root of x minus 3? Just x minus 3. So when you multiply 4 things together, just pick 2 of them to multiply, 2 of them to multiply. Now multiply those together, what do we get? So you distribute. We get 4x minus 12. So that is not a distributive property at the top here, this 2 squared of x minus 3, 2 squared of x minus 3. You're not FOILing, you're not box method, you're not distributing. You're just multiplying 4 items together.
And put the,
Get everything to one side. It's a quadratic. Solve it. Show the person sitting next to you what you're getting. So I'm pausing it, and you're working on it. You relax.